I've lived in Stillwater Swamp for 12 years, and in all that time I've never had much trouble with anything bigger than a gator. The mosquitoes are bad, sure. The summers suffocate, the winters freeze your bones. But trouble? No. Trouble's what you find in towns and bars and other people's eyes. Out here, it's just me, my cabin on stilts, my traps, and the slow, eternal breathing of the swamp. They've got stories about this place, of course. Every backwater town's got 'em. In Stillwater, they talk about the Stillwater Devil, some kind of thing that drags you down into the black water without a ripple. I've heard the old folks spit tobacco juice in the mud and mutter it's as tall as a man, but thin as a shadow, with eyes like lantern glass. I never put much stock in it. Folks out here have to scare each other to keep from getting bored. But 3 nights ago, something changed. It was near dusk. The water was still as glass, all golden with the setting sun. I was out on the dock pulling in my last trap when I saw it, a ripple. Not from a fish. This was wide, heavy, like something big had just moved under the surface. I stood there, waiting for the circles to die out. The swamp was quiet. That's the first thing I should have noticed. No frogs, no crickets. The air was so still, it was like the swamp was holding its breath. I told myself it was nothing. A gar, a log shifting under the water. Something natural. That night, lying in my cot with the lantern turned low, I heard something. A slow, dragging sound outside, like wet feet moving through the shallows. The sound passed under my window, paused, and then faded toward the tree line. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning, I found footprints in the mud by the dock. They weren't gator tracks, and they sure as hell weren't human. They were too long, the toes too narrow, the arch too high. Each one ended in a strange point, like a claw, but blunted, as if whatever made them didn't need to grip, only balance. I tried to put it out of my head. Spent the day checking my traps, patching a hole in the rainwater still, the usual chores. But that night, the sound came back. Louder this time. It wasn't just moving past, it was circling the cabin. I could hear the water slapping against the stilts as it went around and around. Then it stopped. For maybe a minute, there was silence. And then, tap. A knock, soft but deliberate, against the wood under my feet. I sat there in the dark with my shotgun, the lantern lit, listening to something knock from underneath my home. On the 3rd night, I saw it. The air was thick with mist, my breath sticking to my beard. I'd stepped out to dump the fish guts into the water when I noticed the frogs had gone quiet again. My eyes went to the tree line automatically. There, between 2 cypress trunks, something stood. At first, I thought it was a man. Same height, same general shape, but it was too thin. Its arms were too long. The head was tilted at an unnatural angle, as if curious or confused. Its skin, or whatever covered it, shone wet under the moonlight, like it had just come up from the water. The worst part was the eyes. Wide, glassy, reflecting my lantern light without blinking. I shouted. Something stupid, just noise to make myself seem big. It didn't move, didn't flinch. When I took a step toward it, I swear to God it smiled. Not a normal smile. Too wide, the corners of the mouth stretching further than they should, teeth small and uniform like a row of broken shells. I blinked, and it was gone. 2 days later, the storm came. The rain fell in sheets, hammering the tin roof until I thought it might collapse. I stayed inside, the shotgun across my lap, watching the water rise. That night, over the roar of the storm, I heard something dragging across my porch. Heavy, wet, slow. When I looked in the morning, there were deep gouges in the wood, as though something had been testing it. picking at it. I didn't leave the cabin for another day. When the rain finally broke, I went deeper into the swamp than usual, looking for sign. What I found froze me to my core. There was another cabin, or what was left of one, a mile east through the cypress knees. Roof caved in, walls half-rotted, floorboards gone. The place smelled wrong, not just mold and old wood, but something coppery, sharp. Scattered in the muck were bones, not animal, human, long picked clean. Near them, more of those footprints, leading to the water. I turned and left fast, too fast. The swamp seemed to close in around me, the air heavier, harder to breathe. And in that choking silence I heard it again, the dragging steps in water just behind me. I didn't look back. That night it came for me. The first sound was the knock on the stilts, then another, faster, harder until the cabin shook. I backed into the corner, shotgun raised. Silence. Then from the front door, a slow creak as the boards flexed under weight. A shadow passed over the lantern light, blotting it out for just a moment. When the door shuddered inward, I fired. The blast lit the room for an instant, and in that instant I saw its face. Pale, slick, eyes too wide, that awful grin stretching as though amused. The shot didn't drop it. It only stepped back into the dark. For hours, it circled. Sometimes it knocked on the walls, sometimes it splashed in the water below. Once it climbed onto the roof, each step groaning under its weight. I didn't sleep. By dawn, the swamp was quiet again. I knew I couldn't stay. I loaded my skiff with what I could carry, keeping my eyes on the tree line. Pushing off from the dock, I felt the stillness again. The hush, the absence of insect song. My hands were shaking on the oars. I was maybe 20 yards from the cabin when the boat rocked. Hard. I froze. Then came another shove from beneath, strong enough to spill water over the side. I looked down. Through the murky water, just for a moment, I saw it. The pale face, the wide grin, the eyes staring up from below. The water closed over it without a ripple. I made it to the edge of the swamp by nightfall. I didn't look back. But I know it's still there, under that black water, waiting. And when the frogs go quiet in the night, I can hear the faintest splash, the slow steps circling in the shallows.